today's lesson. I hope you're all well out there and hopefully you've been catching up with all my other videos that I've been doing in this current series that is all focused on intervals and understanding all that kind of stuff and understanding how chords are built. Today's lesson delves into some of that knowledge, so if you do not know some of that stuff, then you might want to make sure that you check out in the video description. There is a link to the playlist for that. Watch those videos so that then hopefully this all will make sense for you. Okay, so the problem that you have is generally, if you've ever seen that, I hate them. I absolutely hate those chord books. You know, they've got every chord in Christendom in them. Yeah, you don't need them. And the reason you don't need them is because what you need to do is you need to understand intervals and the CAGED system. The problem that you have with just looking at intervals themselves is finding intervals reliably. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the 5R3 thing to help you, to give you a NorthStar, if you will, to be able to find those notes, those other notes that gives the chords their colour, that change that chord of the moment. If you remember that whole thing, that the video that I did on chord of the moment, then this ties into all that as well. But also, yeah, it helps you to know what notes you can put on top of chords and where they are. But it also helps you to build the chords and to build and to see scales. It's just, and it ties in with CAGED. It just makes so much sense, guys. So the thing is that that's what we're looking at today. So we're going to be using this 5R3. I'm going to go through 3 shapes, and I've queued some graphics up for this lesson today, as I usually do. So here we have the 5th, the root, and the 3rd, and this is what I talk about as being 5R3, guys. The 5R3 thing, that this is so important for you to understand this, and you can see there's a common pattern that happens across these 3 chords. And the beautiful thing is this: once we understand these three notes here, the 5R3, then we can use them as a NorthStar to find other notes. Now, if you remember from the interval seesaw video, there were notes that kind of encompassed all these notes. You could see the order of them, and I'm going to go through those today, like I said. So the first one we're looking at is this E shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how these notes flank the 5R3. So we're always referencing 5R3 to find the other intervals. Otherwise, you're kind of coming at them from nowhere, or you might be trying to find them from a root note in a shape, in an E shape, or an A shape, or something like that. So this is what this is all about. So the first one I'm going to look at, the first note I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the root note and finding the 7ths. And I want to show you this way of understanding it. Like I say, guys, this might be a long one, so let's dig into it, but it's going to be worthwhile. So the first thing to note to look at that we have on the interval seesaw is if we flatten the root. Now, it's a bit of a weird way to say it, really, flatten the root. And what that's going to do is that's going to find us our major 7th. That's going to find you your major 7th. Now, if I just pull my guitar down here and show you in this little chord box down here, there's my E shape, right? This is my root here. If I lower that one and I put the chord back together, then I get this major 7 chord sound. But also, if I played that chord, if that was the chord of the moment, and you've heard me talk about the chord of the moment before, and I were to play that note, then you would hear something happening to that chord. And I'll just use my looper. Here's my looper. That's playing an E major chord. And you can hear the effect that that note has on top of that chord. that has that effect on top of that chord there, guys. And it's really useful to be able to find that 7th at will. Now, let me just show you that this is the case across the board. So if we look at the E shape and then we look at that A shape, you can see that the 7th is 1 lower again on the A shape. And guess what? It's going to be 1 lower on that that D shape. Now, what we want to be able to do with this is we want to be able to play these chords. Now, ordinarily, the E major 7 shape, it's like that's not actually the nicest way to play it, to be honest, really. But the A major shape, if we take that A shape and we pull that first finger back, we get that A major 7 chord. That sounds really, really romantic. These major 7 chords, these are the romantic sounding chords that you should play. You're playing love songs with that stuff. So you can see that essentially tells you where that 7th is. And if you remember from the interval seesaw, that if we, let me change colour here, I'm going to change it to something, I'm going to change it to this blue here. If you remember that interval seesaw, that this 7th here is a major 7, and this 7 here is a minor 7, also known as a flat 7. So this one here, you can see it there, hopefully you can see that, because this is using basically an open, just an open E-shaped chord. And if we go back on the A shape, you can see we get the same thing, and this means that that flat 7 there lives on an open string. Then we have the flat 7 on the D shape, it lives 1 fret underneath. And the thing that I want you to get is that you've got to remember that these shapes, they live in pairs. Like I say, major and minor intervals, they live together. So there you can see we've got the major 7th and the flat and the minor 7th. There, major 7, minor 7. Here, major 7, minor 7. So this ties into that interval seesaw thing. Major and minor intervals always travel in pairs. Yeah, so if you've got a major 3rd, you're going to have a minor 3rd. If you've got a major 2nd, you've got a minor 2nd. And what we're doing is we're essentially applying that interval knowledge to the E, the A, and the D shapes, which are CAGED chords. And the thing to get with that is that this little pattern, 5R3, the 5th, the root, and the 3rd, they become our NorthStar to find notes. So that is essentially a way that you can find your 7th chord. So if I just pull my thingy down here again, so I'm going to go to the E chord. So this is the E chord here. Right, pulling that back here to get that major 7, I find it here, and I know that my minor 7 is just underneath it. So that lives just under there. Well, there's my minor 7. Now, this is a thing that happens when you combine a major triad with the flat 7, you get something called the dominant chord, and that is known as the 7th chord. Yeah, and that has a special function. That's a topic for another video, and you know, I'm trying to trammel my way through these videos, guys, but we will get there. Right, so going back to this one, here's the A. We've got an A chord here. If I move that first finger back to get that major 7, there's the major 7 chord. If I move it back one more, I get a 7th chord. I get a dominant 7th chord there. Same applies with the D shape. I'm going to play that using one finger. There's the major 7, and there's the D7. So you start to see that you don't need lots of chord books and chord diagrams, and they are not separate from each other. They are all related. I should note as well that with the C and the G shape, that deserves its own lessons, and that will be getting that as well. So let's have a look back at this pattern that we have over here. We can see going on this root thing again. Now, if you remember, I'm going to draw on this with, let's have another colour. Let's use, Let's use this violet one here. Now the thing is, if this is the root note, and hopefully you can see my mouse pointer moving around that root note on the E shape there, guys, you can see that the second is here. Now that is a major second. And actually, if you've watched the lesson on compound intervals, then you'll know that that second is also called the ninth. Yeah, so you can see that that second there, it lives there. But because it's a major 7, guess what? It also has a minor 7 living next door to it, just there, just underneath, going down. This way is down. That's down. This way is up. Don't get it wrong. People get it wrong. Because if you think about it, the way the pitch moves up the strings, if I move up from here, you can hear the pitch is going up. The numbers of the frets are going up as well. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until you run out of frets. That is up. So we want to think about it that way, and we're going backwards. Which kind of makes sense with why this would be a flat 2 as well, hopefully, guys, because, you know, we've lowered it 1, and when you lower things, they become flat. Imagine a car and all the tyres going flat at the same time. So you can see that what happens is there, we get that little Mr. and Mrs. major and minor grouping just above the root note there. And that whole thing applies here to these chords here, to this A shape here. We get the flat second and the second just there. A little pairing there. And then on this D shape, we get a second here. And we also get the flat second here. So you can see there we've got the major and the minor second, but you can think of them as ninths. So this one here, if it's a flat second, that would be classed as a flat ninth. Hopefully this makes sense. It gives you a good way to see your way around this. So the roots, that's focusing on the root note. Well, you know, you can get more notes, more goody notes around this idea here as well. Let's look at the third. And in this instance here we have the major chords. So we have a major third. Now if you've seen my video on suspensions, then what you'll know is that the fourth is just above the third here. Hang on, let me change colour on that one because it's just deserving of its own colour. So I'll put that there. There's the fourth, and it's just above that root note, that third there, sorry. Yeah, so you can see that there is the fourth. That's the fourth. Now, if we were to go one higher, and let me change that to, I'm going to go for this yellow here, because remember, this is our lemon. This is our slice of lemon. This is the sharp 4. That's where that lives. So if you were playing an E major chord, yeah, and I want to go to the sharp 4 because I want to sound Lydian, don't worry about it, it's modes, we'll get there. Then that is going to help you to find it. That is also known as the flat 5. It's a similar way of looking at it. And then what we could do is we can think, well, hang on. This fifth here, well, it's an octave higher up here. I'm going to choose a blue for that one because I've already used the blue. And there's the fifth there. So we're just building these little shapes. Remember, from the intervals seesaw, we had the perfect fourth, the perfect fifth, and then right in the middle we had that lemon, that really dissonant tone when you compare it to the root note there. Going backwards as well, that's actually the flat third. That would make sense because if you look at my next slide, let's have a look. Oh no, we're not going to get my next slide. If we look at that, there's the flat third, yeah, and then we can tie that in with that there. There's the flat third, and which is the minor third and the major third. Let's take that all the way across there. We can see, we know where those notes are there. This is what I was thinking. The second is here. So we can see that the second lives there on this D shape. We look at the third and we know that the flat third is here. No, we need to know that anyhow because this is going to come into play when we use our major and our minor shapes. Yet again, going over here onto the A shape. Let's have this one. This is the sharp 4. So you're starting to see that all these chords, these chord tones, they are clustered around the caged chord shapes, which are the E, the A, and the D shape. There's that little sandwich, that little dissonant sandwich there, the perfect 4th, the perfect 5th. Then we get that perfect 4th and perfect 5th with that which are really consonant sounds, and you put that sharp 4, that kind of really zingy, discordant interval in the middle of those there. Right, so the next note I'm going to look at is this 5th. I'm going to build up this 5th, and I'm going to go up the neck here. And the first interval I'm going to take you to, is this 6 that lives here. And look, like I say, this happens all the way across these 3 shapes. So we've got these 3 shapes here. And then what we can think as, well, that's a major 6. Hang on. If there's a major, what do we know? There's a minor. So then we get this major and minor pair that live next door to each other there. Look, they're just there. They're just cohabiting. That's it. They don't have to be married. You know. They could be just cohabiting there, and we can see we've got that there. And anything below that 5th there, well, that's just going to be a repeat of that whole sharp 4 thing that I did before. And you can see that what that means is sharp 4 there, bang that there. You can see that means that we get access to a hell of a load of notes around the E, A, and the D shapes. If I apply that now to my minor shapes, you can see that the same rules are going to apply. So it's the same system, but it's what we're doing is we're looking at creating these little hotspots, use these NorthStars using, I'm going to do this one here. There's my flat 3rd. My major 3rd's going to be there. My major 3rd's going to be there. And that ties in with 5R3, how you remember your major and your minor shapes, because those are your 2 basic tonalities. So we've got that there, and all the other rules apply. I know that I've got, do you know what? I'll be a rebel here, and I'll even though there aren't any of those other notes there, I'm just going to call this a flat 9. Yeah, really, it's a flat 2nd because there's no complicated chord theory going on there, but I want to show you that this could be thought of as being the same thing. So there you go. Depending on what chord it is, but your thinking would switch whether you're thinking that is a 2nd or whether you're thinking of it as being a 9th. In this case, we'd probably be thinking of it as being a 9th. And that would make sense. Yeah, especially if we want to do it like this. And I'll just show you a quick little chord formula. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make an add 9 chord. We're going to have some add 9 chords going on here. I'm going to show you in a practical manner. So add 9. This would be easier if I could type it. And the formula for an add 9 is, remember from the other videos that we've been doing, root 3rd 5th. Then because there's no 7th to bridge into the compound, then what we do is we have the 9th. So this is what we're adding. Well, how the heck do you do that? Well, all you do is you go, right, okay, this is an E minor shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 9th there. That's it. That's all she wrote. That looks like this. That looks like this here, guys. So look, I'll come in close. You can see I'm playing a power chord, essentially. Now, doesn't that sound moody and evocative? So you could get to be able to do that. Look, and the same rule is going to apply across the other shapes as well. You've got to try these as well. You're not, you know, this is the thing. It's like, it's not just a passive thing, watching the lesson. You've got to try this on your guitar. So you can see there, I've added a 9th to those chords there. Just by understanding how these notes flank around each other, you can see how that's going to work. The thing is, with this business here as well, guys, is that, okay, so we're using those shapes, like I say, as NorthStar, but we can link those shapes using the CAGED system. And what I'm doing is I'm only focusing on 3 of them, like I say. I'm not using the C shape, I'm not using the G shape. This is a lot to get your head around. So if you are a beginner, yeah, then watch everything from Chord of the Moment. Yeah, the Chord of the Moment in that playlist in the description. If that is the case, guys, and you need to go through this systematically, because I've tried to go through that and build everything into play with that one. Hi, Phil. So let's look at this from this kind of stance of it being the E chord, right? And now this is how CAGED works. No matter which shape you're on, you're in the CAGED system, yeah? So this is an E shape here, right? The next shape up is the next letter in the sequence CAGED. So if I go C, A, G, E, the next shape up is going to be a D shape, because CAGED is the sequence of the shapes. C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape, and D shape. So if we go up from the E shape, the next place we're going to find this E is here. Now, if I said to you that's an E, you might find a little bit of cognitive dissonance with that. But that is an E. I can even borrow this here, that E string there, and you can hear that that's an E. But it's a different voice D. So there's the E shape, and here's the D shape. I'm playing it this easy way. I could play it as a bar chord. Yeah? But I'm just going to play it like this. Now, the way that the octaves link up, there's the C-shaped octave, E-shaped octave, D-shaped octave, C-shaped octave, going up into the E-shaped octave. And you can see here, I get my A-shaped E chord. That's my E-shaped E major chord. So that's great, because now I've found the 3 zones where 5R3 exists. There's 5R3 here, there's 5R3 here, and there's 5R3 here. And now it becomes a case of connecting those ideas and flanking it with those notes that we know live around it. They're kind of like islands around the main body of the chord. So the 5R3 there, and I go to myself, well, that's my 3rd, my 4 is there, my sharp 4's there, and there's my 5. Look, there's that sandwich, perfect 4th, 5th. So if I've got some sort of Lydian thing going on, remember that's a 4th, that's sharp 4. Oops, sorry. Can you hear? You get something a bit gnarly there. Right? Now that's going to apply on all of these shapes here. So you get that chord that is going, and I'll play an E chord as well. So this is an E chord. These become your hot spots. And then I'll go up to I'm going to go up the dusty end as well. So, because remember, everything up to the 12th fret, yeah, is repeated in the next half of the neck. Yeah, this is the joy of the guitar. It's easy once you understand how it's laid out. So, now, if I want to make that sound like major 7, I put that major 7 note on there, and you can hear it wants to lead up to the root note again. I take the D shape, do the same there. Take the A shape, so you can hear that going on there. What if it was the flat 7? Yeah. And I'll just pause for a minute just to stress, to remember that this flat 7, if you put it on a major chord, it turns it into a dominant chord, which sounds bluesy. It's a really, really important thing to know. Back to it. Right. So, you can hear that note, and I'm just playing an open D string on that. There's the D chord, major 7, minor 7. that there. Here's the A shape. Root, major 7, flat 7. I can even add those notes. And that becomes a little... I shouldn't have bent that one. Don't bend the root. Right, so we got that going on there. Let me just stop that chord, because it's a bit annoying. So, okay guys, hopefully that makes sense what's going on there. Now I can add lots of other notes around there. It helps me to find, you got an E, there's your sus4, there's an E sus4. Using the D shape. That might look familiar. Here's the A shape up here. So it means you can make these intelligent note choices. And the thing is, this is why everybody sounds different, because it's all about note choices and the note choices that reflect the emotion that you are trying to create in the music. Okay, how long have we been going? We've only been going for quite some time now. But I'm going to pull up the old drawing thing again, because I want to show you how those shapes all line out. The key to this is what you need to do, and I will include that in the PDF that I will put in the description, is you need to understand some chord formulas. Memorize the chord formulas, and once you have them memorized, you know the recipe to make the chords. It's like being a chef. You know, the chef doesn't refer to the recipe book every time, the professional chef, every time that he wants to make a specific meal. He knows the recipe, and you need to know the recipe, and that's what these formulas do. But obviously you need something to be able to relate them to. So this 5R3 gives you context of where to shift those. I'm just going to switch back to this here, guys. So you can see we've got this here. I'm going to exit that there, and I'm going to move on to the next one here. So hopefully you can see here that we have this 5R3 thing, and the way that it all works its way around there, and it's about connecting those together. And what you can do is, and I'll just get my pen again here, and hopefully you saw it when we looked at just the shapes themselves and how those notes satellite around the 5R3. Yeah, what you can see is that some of these notes get become really easy to connect, and I'd recommend doing this process of figuring out how you play from 5R3 and then sliding up your first finger here from the 3rd to the 5th, maybe connecting that pattern there, you know, and then maybe coming from this root here on the D shape and sliding that up to the 3rd here, moving that up here, and that what that'll do is it'll get you from this zone here to this zone here to this zone here. So you start covering more of the neck, but what's more important as well is you start covering more of the voices that are on the guitar neck, which is what you want to do if you want to be able to have a big, you know, range. You know, Roy Orbison had an amazing vocal range because he had so much register that he could go into, and you want to have the same sort of thing as well. So it makes sense to do this. Now, I've just shown you that, but if I get rid of these things here, right, and I fill them in with the note values, then you start to see that it becomes a little bit more explicit of what you can choose. Remember that 3rd to the 5th there. Well, we had the 4th, and I'm not going to change everything here. 4th, sharp 4, 5th, and you can see how that little segment there, that little chromatic pattern going up there, that builds up, and we have our little seesaw fulcrum. That's what I think of it as in the interval seesaw lesson that I did. If you look at this here, then you can see we've got that little kind of sharp 4, nasty lemon sandwich. You can think of it in that way. Well, let's look as well. We can think about it in lots of different ways. Let's look at this root here. We've got the flat 2nd here. And that flat was awful, so I'll write it again. Flat 2nd here, and we can see here There's the pair, major and minor in a pair. And let's look at this third here, and we can put this here, and we can see how major and minor work together there. Hopefully this all makes sense, guys, and you can see that this is based on major 5/3 shapes, the E major, the D major, and the A major shape. You can see them there. You want the sixths. You want to know where the sixth is, you go 5. There's your major 6 lives there. There's your flat 6. Let me just say, yeah, in a minor, confusing. It's a confusing thing. It's just one of those anomalies. In a major 6 chord, in a minor 6 chord, it's actually a major 6. Yeah, I know, go figure, right? But but it's one of those things that had me confused for quite some time, and then I thought, hang on, it does make sense a little bit later on. But look at this one here. That's where I find my pair. My pairs are everywhere. It is just a recurring pattern, because, you know, guys, that's what guitar's all about. It's all about these patterns and just being able to find them, you know. So you can see how I'm plotting these out here. And I can say to myself, I go, 5/3, these are my most sort of vanilla, if you will, notes that I can pick. They're safe. They're really, really safe notes. But if I move outside of those notes, then I can create interest with other notes, with other sounds. If I play that E major chord again on my looper, yeah, and play it down here, there's my E major chord. What the heck does that sixth sound like? And it's a good idea to, if you have a looper, is to play a chord, listen, see what it sounds like. What emotion is it evoking? It's quite dreamy, is the sixth on the major chord there. And then you can see, I'll just stop that loop, and then you can start to see that using this E shape here, because I think to myself, well, I like the sixth because it's relaxing, it's kind of a bit dreamy, and the second is here, I get a little pattern, and then that becomes part of something that I play, or it becomes part of something that you're trying to learn that somebody else has written, because this is a useful way to be able to reverse engineer songs when you're learning them. Right, okay, so on to the next shape. I told you it was going to be a long one. On to the next shape here. We can see we get the minors here. The same thing is going to apply, because all you are doing is applying that interval seesaw to these notes. If you remember that interval seesaw, let me just draw it out for you here, hopefully with a degree of skill, because I'm using a mouse. Right, root. We get the flat second. That's an awful one. There we go. There's the flat second. There's the second. We get the flat third. And this is going up 1 fret at a time, guys. So flat third, fourth. Perfect. That's a perfect fourth. Then we get the sharp 4, which is also known as the flat 5, but I'm not going to put that in there because it's more writing. There's the 5th, which is perfect. You can see it. Then we get the minor 6. Yeah. Then we get the major 6. Then we get the flat 6. Flat 7, sorry. Then we get the 7. And then we are back to root, which is also known as the octave. And remember what I said with the seesaw. There is the major and minor pair of seconds. There is the major and minor pair of thirds. Here is the perfect lemon sandwich. And here are the sixths in a pair. Here are the sevenths in a pair. And you can see there is a symmetry to this shape, to these notes. This is all strings. This is all music as well. And I kind of think of that sharp 4 as being bang in the middle of it all. You know, it's the most dissonant note that you have from the root. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. This is a really kind of useful way for you to disseminate and understand the fretboard. I know that my contemporaries are charging bucks for this, and I'm giving you it free because I want to help you to unlock the instrument. I'm going to do the C and the G shapes in another lesson, carrying on with this theme, the more sort of technical aspect. But I do know that some of my subscribers, you like the more basic stuff, and the beginners especially, because this was probably right over the top of your head. Don't worry about it. I've got you. I'm going to be doing some stuff soon. I have an upcoming series, guys. It's going to be called Riff Masters. I've got a Riff Masters series that I'm going to do for you, and hopefully these will be shorter lessons. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the riffs that you know and love, but I'm going to break them down theoretically so that you know kind of theoretically where they come from, the origin of those riffs. And if you know where they come from, then you can see the commonalities between one band and another band, because essentially the language of music, there's just one language. It's just how you say it. You know, the different genres, they all use the same system. We all play the same chords. So the thing is, once you understand that, then you can apply it across the board. Learning Deep Purple is no harder than learning Yngwie Malmsteen. It's about the theory. It's about knowing how to access those sounds. So I will be doing a series called Riff Masters as well. I've also been getting requests for song tutorials. So in the community post, or in the post for this here, if you can put the names of some songs that you would love to learn, then I could do some tutorials on that. If you have enjoyed this lesson, you got some value from it, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment in the video as well. I really appreciate that. The comments in the super chat, they disappear. And the YouTube algorithm doesn't take any notice of them. Now, you know as well as I do that somebody out there might be looking for this, just this lesson. They might be looking for it, and if it gets pushed up the algorithm just a little bit and they find it, it might be the difference in them getting a little bit better on guitar and understanding it a little bit better. Guys, lovely to see you all in the chat today. Head over to my Facebook page as well. I've got a link in there for the Facebook page. That's a place where you can chat. YouTube is just a little bit hard to get a conversation going. But guys, stick around in there. I've got some super cool, interesting things coming on. And can I also say thank you as well to everybody, who's been dropping the PayPal payments into the, I've got a thing in there, the PayPal donations, man. It just like every time I get one, it's like I choke up, and I super appreciate it. I think you're all amazing. If you feel that you got something, then it helps me know I'm doing all right. What I'm going to say is I've taken enough of your time, but make sure you apply this to your instrument, guys. It's really important that you don't just sit on your backside and think you're going to learn it by osmosis. You are not. Apply it. The PDF will be coming any minute, and I'll bang it up there. I'll see you next time, guys. Take care. See you later. Bye.